Rain splattered across the dusty windshield as Sarah gripped the steering wheel tighter, her 18-wheeler thundering down the dark highway. The road stretched endlessly ahead, just her, the hum of the diesel engine, and the rhythmic panting of her two loyal companions, Rex and Shadow, massive German Shepherd military, K9 sitting alert behind her seat. Once trained for combat, now they guarded her through the lonely miles. The night was quiet, almost too quiet, until the sudden roar of motorcycle engines shattered the peace. In her side mirror, she spotted a pack of bikers, headlights slicing through the rain like angry eyes. They sped closer, surrounding her truck like predators circling their prey. Sarah's heart began to race, but her hands stayed steady on the wheel. She had seen danger before, on battlefields where every breath could be your last. These men didn't scare her. She slowed slightly, hoping they'd pass, but they didn't. The bikers revved louder, some banging on her trailer, others pulling alongside, shouting crude remarks and laughing. One of them threw a beer can at her windshield, the metallic thud echoing in the cabin. "Hey, sweetheart," one yelled, "need some company tonight." Sarah clenched her jaw, ignoring them, focusing on the road. But then, one biker cut sharply in front of her truck, forcing her to slam the brakes. Her heart pounded as the truck screeched to a halt on the wet asphalt. The bikers circled around, headlights flickering through the mist. She was trapped, bad move, she muttered under her breath. Inside the cabin, Rex and Shadow growled deeply, their ears pricked and muscles tensed. They sensed her fear and the danger outside. Sarah opened the door slowly, stepping out into the rain. The air smelled of gasoline and trouble. The gang's leader, a tall man with a scruffy beard and a skull tattoo crawling up his neck, waggered toward her, grinning. "What's a pretty little thing like you doing driving a rig all alone?" He sneered, looking her up and down. "How about you ditch this truck and ride with us?" The others laughed, revving their engines, circling her like vultures. Sarah stood firm, eyes cold as steel. "Back off," she said, voice low but deadly calm. "You don't want to do this." The leader smirked, stepping closer. "Oh, I think we do." He reached for her arm. That's when she gave the command, "Rex, Shadow, engage." In an instant, the air exploded with snarls and motion. The two German shepherds leapt from the cab like missiles. Rex lunged at the leader, knocking him flat on his back, his teeth clamping down on the man's arm with bone-crushing force. Shadow charged another biker who was reaching for a knife, sending him sprawling into the mud. Panic erupted. The bikers scrambled, shouting and cursing, engines roaring in chaos. One tried to swing a chain at Rex, but the dog dodged effortlessly, snapping at his wrist. Another man stumbled backward, tripping over his own bike. The sound of growling, screaming, and revving engines filled the night. Sarah stood tall beside her truck, rain dripping down her jacket, her eyes glowing with controlled fury. "You picked the wrong woman," she said. The bikers who hadn't been taken down yet jumped back onto their motorcycles, terrified. "Call them off," one shouted, clutching his bleeding arm. Sarah whistled sharply, and both dogs froze instantly, returning to her side with disciplined precision, eyes still burning with adrenaline. The gang leader groaned on the ground, clutching his arm, staring at her in disbelief. "Who the hell are you?" He spat through the pain. She crouched beside him, her voice cold and steady. "Sergeant Sarah Lawson, U.S. Army K9 Corps, and those." She nodded at Rex and Shadow. "Are the last faces you'll ever want to see again." She stood up and turned toward her truck. "Next time you think of harassing a woman on the road," she said, opening the door, "remember tonight. You're lucky I gave the stand-down order." The remaining bikers helped their wounded leader onto a bike and sped off into the darkness, tails between their legs, engines howling like the wind. Sarah climbed back into her cab, dripping wet but unshaken. She reached out and scratched both dogs behind their ears. "Good boys," she whispered, and they wagged their tails, panting proudly. The adrenaline faded as she started the truck again. The headlights pierced through the rain as she pulled back onto the highway, leaving the chaos behind. The silence returned, broken only by the soft hum of the engine and the steady breathing of her dogs. She smiled faintly to herself. "Guess some people still need to learn respect," she murmured, but deep inside she knew it wasn't just about respect. It was about survival, courage, and the unbreakable bond between a soldier and her K9s. As the night stretched on, she felt a quiet pride. Not everyone could handle a war, whether it was fought on the battlefield or a lonely stretch of highway. But she could, and she wasn't alone. Rex shifted, resting his head on her shoulder, while Shadow lay across her feet. Together, they rode through the storm, three warriors who had already seen the worst the world could offer. And when dawn finally broke over the horizon, painting the sky with hues of gold, Sarah smiled again. Another night survived. Another battle won. The world could be dark and cruel, but with courage, loyalty, and the heart of a soldier, it never truly won. The night was heavy with rain, the kind that blurred the horizon and swallowed the road ahead in sheets of gray. Sarah Lawson tightened her grip on the steering wheel of her 18-wheeler, her eyes sharp, scanning the wet highway that stretched endlessly before her. The hum of the diesel engine was steady and strong, like a heartbeat keeping rhythm with the storm. In the backseat, two pairs of glowing eyes watched her every move. Rex and Shadow, her loyal military K9s, both highly trained German shepherds who had once served beside her in Afghanistan. Now they were her constant companions on the open road, guarding her as faithfully as they had in war. She had traded the battlefield for the highway, but danger, it seemed, had a way of finding her. The radio crackled softly, playing an old country tune, when the low rumble of engines began to rise behind her. At first, she thought it was just another convoy, but the sound grew louder, more aggressive. Then the flickering lights appeared in her mirrors. Dozens of motorcycles closing in fast. Her instincts kicked in immediately. Something about the way they moved wasn't right. They weren't just passing by. They were surrounding her. The pack of bikers closed in, their headlights slicing through the rain like blades. One of them pulled up beside her window, grinning through his soaked beard. "Hey, sweetheart," he shouted over the roar of his engine. "Nice truck. Need some company out here." The others laughed, circling the massive rig like wolves. Sarah's jaw tightened. She had dealt with men like them before, loud, reckless, drunk on arrogance. But out here, miles from the nearest town, there was no backup, no witnesses. Just her truck, and two K9s trained to take down armed combatants. She took a deep breath, keeping calm. She wasn't the type to be intimidated. Another biker swerved close, slapping the side of her truck with his hand. The metallic bang echoed in the rain. "Come on, baby, pull over, let's talk." Sarah ignored them, focusing on the road, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. But then one of them tossed a bottle. It shattered against her windshield, sending shards of glass and beer spraying across the cab. She slammed on the brakes, the truck screeching to a halt as the bikers skidded around her. For a long moment, everything went still except the hiss of rain and the growl of motorcycle engines. Then one of the bikers, tall, broad-shouldered, his face marked by a skull tattoo that crawled up his neck, dismounted and swaggered toward her door. His voice was a sneer. "You shouldn't be out here alone, pretty lady. Why don't you let us give you some company?" Behind him, the others hooted and laughed. Sarah's eyes went cold. She reached for the handle, opened the door, and stepped down slowly. The rain drenched her instantly, dripping off her cap and jacket. "You boys should get back on your bikes," she said, her tone calm but razor-sharp. "You don't know what you're getting into." The man smirked, taking another step closer. "Oh, I think I do." He reached out to grab her arm. That's when Sarah gave the order. "Rex, Shadow, engage." The night exploded. From the cab, the two K9s leapt into action, their barks slicing through the storm. Rex lunged first, slamming into the tattooed leader with bone, breaking force, his teeth sinking into the man's forearm. The biker screamed, stumbling backward, blood mixing with rain. Shadow followed instantly, his powerful body slamming another man to the ground before the biker could even draw his knife. The rest of the gang erupted in panic. "Get him off," someone shouted, trying to swing a chain at the dogs, but Rex dodged and turned, his teeth flashing. Shadow tore through the mud, driving a third biker down as his engine toppled over. The sound of growling, shouting, and revving filled the night. Sarah stood still amid the chaos, rain dripping from her hair, her eyes locked on the scene. Her heartbeat was steady, her mind focused. This was the kind of control only soldiers had. One biker tried to start his motorcycle and escape, but Shadow lunged, grabbing the man's jacket and dragging him down again. Sarah raised her voice over the storm. "You wanted to play tough. You're lucky I'm still being kind." Her command voice cut through the noise. "Rex, Shadow, stand down." Instantly, the dogs released and backed away, their bodies tense but obedient. The gang leader lay on the ground, gasping in pain, clutching his arm, his face pale as he looked up at her. "Who the hell are you?" he choked out, trembling. Sarah crouched beside him, her voice like ice. "Sergeant Sarah Lawson, U.S. Army K9 Corps. I trained these dogs to take down insurgents twice your size." She leaned closer, her gaze unblinking. "Next time you think of harassing a woman on the road, remember tonight, and the sound of your own scream." She stood up, whistled softly, and both dogs returned to her side, alert but calm. The other bikers were pale with fear, some dragging their injured friends toward their motorcycles. "Let's get out of here," one shouted. Within seconds, engines roared to life, tires spun in the mud, and the entire gang fled into the darkness, their taillights vanishing like dying embers. Sarah exhaled slowly and turned to her dogs. Rex wagged his tail once. Shadow shook the rain from his coat. She smiled faintly and gave them each a pat. "Good boys," she said quietly. The storm began to ease, the rain softening to a drizzle as she climbed back into the cab. She started the engine again, the familiar rumble filling the silence. As the truck rolled forward, the headlights cut through the mist, and the highway stretched wide and open before her. Rex curled up behind her seat, Shadow resting his head against her boot. Sarah glanced at them and felt a swell of pride. These weren't just dogs, they were her brothers, in arms, her protectors, her family. The world could be dark, cruel, and filled with men who thought they could overpower a woman alone. But she wasn't just any woman. She was a soldier, a survivor, and with Rex and Shadow by her side, she feared nothing. As dawn broke, turning the clouds gold and pink, Sarah smiled faintly at the horizon. Another night survived, another victory earned. Somewhere behind her, those bikers would be licking their wounds and remembering the lesson they'd never forget. Never underestimate a woman with a soldier's heart and 2 trained warriors at her command.